Hey guys, welcome to QA Thursday, and in this session I'm going to talk about trading psychology. And of course there's so much trading psychology, and I will be talking more about it in the future, but arguably trading psychology is actually one of the most important aspects of trading, and it's very much overlooked as well. And so I've actually put together this diagram based on my own experience, and I'm sure many traders might have similar experiences as well. And of course we're always taught that the strategy is just so important, right? And I've put this as roughly 5% importance. And of course, this ties along with having a developed and back-tested algorithm, right? Because from your strategy, you need to have entries and exits. You need to be pretty much have no emotion in some aspects and be ruthless in taking profits and having a predefined invalidation point. But of course, that's not enough because you need to have enough risk management as well. Because if you're not able to manage your risk, then you're not going to have enough attempts for your edge to actually catch up. And of course, enough market exposure. You need to be able to go through ranging markets, and of course sideways markets as well, and being able to adapt to the market condition. And an element, of course, is knowing when not to trade, right? Of course, we have these huge news events, and being able to not trade and being able to sit out at certain times is very important as well, specifically when there's a lot of ambiguity as well. But I've actually put trading psychology as actually 60%. Because very often you have people who have all the tools and all the gear as well, like all the monitors, and they just simply cannot understand what they're doing wrong. And very often it just comes down to trading psychology, because at the end of the day, trading is really much a battle against yourself, right? And if you're not able to manage your emotions, then of course that's going to really negatively impact your trading performance. And so I've actually put together this diagram as well. It always baffles me how specifically people like doctors and lawyers and teachers or any profession that you hear about, people are willing to actually train 10, 15 years, right, to actually do those professions. I actually trained to be a doctor before, specifically going all in on trading more or less. And what I've noticed particularly is that people, whenever they see trading screens and trading profits, whenever they see those numbers and the fact that they can see the profits on a screen, the whole sense of delayed gratification just goes completely out the window. But in any 9 to 5 jobs, most people are willing to spend years on end just working 9 to 5 and just hoping to have a retirement like 50 years later. And so in some ways trading, you need to see that trading is a business. And of course people go through phases. Initially you might put on a few successful trades and you might have beginner's luck. Then you might lose a lot of money and a lot of confidence, right? And then once you accept that at this point your competence does not really match your confidence, you eventually start to be a bit more humble and start to backtest things, and eventually you'll get to this break-even phase. We just have many break-even months. And once you're actually consistently profitable, you get to this stage. But even when you get to this stage, you have to constantly adapt as well, because market participants change, the markets change. Of course, you have to constantly adapt, because otherwise you're going to be left behind. In this aspect, I always say trading is like you're becoming an athlete of the charts. It requires so much discipline. For example, do you spend Sunday just charting and just setting some time aside and looking through charts and preparing yourself for the week? Because people often say, oh, well, I missed that trade because I was doing something. Well, that's not necessarily true, because sometimes you can just prepare in advance in the weekends or just a couple of hours on Sunday. And if you decide you're quite busy, then that's fine. You can approach a more swing trading style of trading, right? So there's always ways to work around busyness. Absolutely. And I myself say I actually find that I've actually trade better when I have other stuff going on as well, because it really means that I don't take useless and less high probability setups. It makes me more selective on my setups as well. So now I'm just going to go over certain common myths about trading. Okay, everyone has the same questions, and it's just, my goodness. Trading is easy money in just 60 minutes a day. Well, no, that's not entirely true, because by actually entering and exiting, it might only take a couple of minutes or 30, 40 minutes, but you need to realize that there's only a certain window of opportunity. To actually get that opportunity, it might be the case you might have to spend a couple of hours on desk. It might be the case you have to sit from 9 to 4 to actually find those opportunities. And so you don't actually know when that window of opportunity is. Yes, to actually execute the trade, it didn't take as long, but that's a fallacy. And it also, the fact that it just completely ignores the actual years of practice and market exposure. It kind of dismisses that. And so there's some truth to this, but this is not true. Yes, you get to the stage of competence where you probably do make that quickly, but you need to put that initial work in, because to master any craft is a natural learning curve. And very often you're probably getting confused. It's probably because a lot of social media is painting a very relaxed and easy picture. Next mobility myth: How long and how much can I make? It's on everyone's mind, right? But at the end of the day, it's not so much about the money you're making. That should just come naturally. Some people can make 100K. Some people can make 10K. Some people make 5K. Some people can make 1K. Some people don't make anything. Now, let me ask you, right? Imagine if you were the owner of a business and you have two people. One person is constantly bringing consistent revenue or just consistent performance every single month, right? Perhaps 5% every month, 5% every month, right? Then another person is just all over the place. They might bring 10% one month. Next month might be minus 60%. The month after that might be 200%. The month after that might be 300%. But then after that's like minus 90%. It's just all over the place. And so consistency is the essence of winning, essentially. And so I think it should be a focus more towards consistency. And whenever you focus on that consistency, the results will just naturally follow as well. And so specifically when you're starting, I think it's very important not to compare your journey to other people. And so now I'm just going to talk about some more practical steps to really manage trading psychology and just being aware of your emotions. Because sometimes people often have this pressure that trading psychology is a bit of waffle, right? But I completely disagree, because very often when we're not conscious of ourselves and our mistakes and just our patterns of behavior, we're not able to deal with similar situations later. And it's just nice to actually have set criteria and set algorithms that we can follow to really manage our own mistakes and our emotions. So the first, I think, mindset is that the market does not owe you anything. The market does not care about you. I remember when I started, I was like, well, that's it. Trading has to work for me. It has to work right now. But then little did I know that it just wasn't that easy. The market will decide when you're ready, and when you're ready to make profit, you'll just know. And that's the thing. In the market, you're actually battling against some of the brightest minds, and there's no free lunch. You're competing against market makers, against algorithms, firms. And so you have to constantly accept that there's a natural price, there's a natural learning curve. And of course, you should always focus on taking high probability setups and managing risk as well. And this is just an important key aspect. Something else I want to really highlight is that the business versus employee mindset. Before, especially to fund my trading account stuff, I worked several jobs. But very often in jobs, like normal 9-to-5 jobs, there's a general employee mindset. You clock in and clock out, but your pay is fixed. And then the same people really speaking just blow their whole income at the end of the week, right? Trading is more business. It's not so much a stable paycheck initially, specifically as well. It's more, your profits can be exponential, but some weeks you're doing no trades, other weeks you're doing several trades in a day. And so it's not really by the clock. You're trading more based on high probability setups and managing your risk and constantly taking calculated risks, but at the same time being able to live to fight another day. So that's just a key mindset difference as well. Just because someone is making 50 trades a day or a month, it does not necessarily mean that they're more productive than someone who makes 4 good swing trades in a month. I actually specifically found that certain months I probably placed 2 or 3 good swing trades, or 4 at the most, and I've greatly outperformed the times I've placed like 50 scalps in like a week. And so sometimes quality is better than quantity, and often less is more as well. So it's something to be wary of. Next thing is very important as well, is never breaking your system. Because 95% of traders have absolutely no system or algorithm. Sometimes people just specifically change from one strategy to the next. They might have a good strategy for a trending market, and then that works. But then when it goes from a trending market to a sideways consolidation market, they just think, oh, wait a minute, this isn't working anymore, I'm going to change. But that initial strategy, that might very well work well in the future for trending markets. And they just have to adapt the strategy according to the actual market environment. And so this is an advantage of, I'm going to talk about later about journaling as well. I know it's seen as quite mundane, but it is an essential part if you want to really take this in a more serious business, really, this trading. And of course, as I mentioned, trading is a business at the end of the day. The ultimate goal is to be consistent. It's just so important. And stop losses, this is another thing. A stop loss is not so much what is the maximum amount of money that I can lose. A stop loss is more at which point do I accept that I'm wrong. Of course, you might place it based on market structure and various other things, but it is a point of invalidation. And so just think about it, right? Whenever you've entered a trade, you have a predefined entry, stop loss, take profit. Even if you move your stop loss and you get away with it, and if you win that trade, you yourself know that you're able to get away with that. And because you've just in a sense lied to yourself, And over the test of time, you will eventually end up in a really bad habit. And of course, all of us had to go through this. Initially when you start, you use no stop loss, then you lose a large sum of money, and you learn from your mistake. And so stop losses is just an essential part of risk management, specifically, especially when you're starting. But I just use it all the time because it's just making it a lot more robotic as well, this trading process. And this is one of my favorite rules as well in trading. So knowing when not to trade. So if I have 3 consecutive losses in a day, which is a bit rare because I don't usually trade that much a day. I'm more of a swing trader, sometimes a scalp, but mostly swing. But it's just a good rule that if you have 3 consecutive losses in a day, just stop trading, because something just might be off. It might be that your psychology is damaged. Very often, if you've gotten into a fight or having some personal problems, just the emotions can definitely psychologically impact your trading. Because at the end of the day, behind the screen, we're actually humans. There's a lot of psychology as well why I use a laptop and not monitors. Someone actually recommended this to me as well. Quite interesting, because a lot of people, professional traders, have monitors, but there's a lot of psychology behind it, right? Because very often if you have monitors, and if you've had a bad day of trading, the screens are still in your face. You can't get rid of them. Even if you try to just put your desk away and just try to sit out from trading that particular day. With laptops, you can just fold it away and you can just not look at it. It's in a sense shutting it away. And so that's just a certain tip as well I've noticed as well. Obviously, there's no right or wrong, but that's just because I have noticed psychological difference when, if it's a bad day of trading, folding the laptop away and just not thinking about it. Or perhaps you might decide that, okay, well, I've made a bad trade. I'm going to just stand up and walk away from a trading desk and just do something else, because it's just so important to really manage your psychology as well. And this is a practical tip as well I've noticed. And of course, I've developed certain rules as well. This is a snapshot from certain things in my own journal and my algorithm, and I've got so many things, for example, trying to really read, at least update my rules every weekend. I get that sometimes every day it's not possible to read your rules, and it's just not practical sometimes. And I found that this is very much sustainable for me. Of course, constantly keeping grounded and learning. I've set this goal of, my rough goal is to grow my account by 10% every month. I mean, of course, some months are not going to be the same. Some months might be a lot more, right? But it's just, for me personally, you don't have to do that. Everyone's goal is different. Of course, depends on your account size, right? But it's just, when I have a goal like that, it just means that I'm more selective of my trades, being able to take more high probability setups rather than focusing on just useless trades. And so, to me, it's a constant reminder that you can make 5 trades in a month and greatly outperform someone that's making 100 trades in a week. And so the principle is leave the garbage trades for everyone else. This is actually one of my favorite principles as well. Leave the garbage trades for everyone else. And so being more selective as well. So I think the main takeaway here is the consistency. And this last one as well, the market does not care about your desperation. Sometimes you just have to think, you might be in a situation where specifically, you need trading to work and you're in a lot of debt, etc., etc. But the thing is, you can be in more debt as well. And so the market is just brutal. It's ruthless. It's a question of survival at the end of the day. It is literally survival of the fittest at the end of the day. And I know it's quite cutthroat and blunt, but this is, I've got completely roasted initially when I had a lack of respect for the market. And so do not try to beat the market. You try and embrace the market, try to outsmart the participants, I think, as well. Of course, emotions. As humans, greed and fear really control us as well, right? So what's a greater emotion, do you think? The pain of losing $100 or the joy of getting $100? Personally, I actually find it more painful to lose $100 than actually the joy of getting $100. And so I think sometimes fear can be a greater emotion sometimes, and a string of losses can definitely affect us in trading. Of course, personal problems and life stresses. And I always said the market generally favors people with a really positive and calm mood. And this mindset of that is that of each trade is just a mere statistic for me. This mindset has just been golden, because when I'm more focused on my profit at the end of the month as opposed to each and every individual trade, I realize that, okay, this trade, if it doesn't work out, it's fine. It's just a statistic. Because sometimes if you just micromanage trades, if you just try to update stop losses too early, sometimes you can get stopped out of another otherwise good trade. Because if you did that, you planned to put a stop loss in a certain place, but then you moved it up to break even too early and you lost the trade. You can't really isolate whether it was because of the trade, that faulty strategy, that you lost the trade, or because of the fact that you actually moved the stop loss too early. And so just this mindset of treating each stage like a statistic and more bothered with the profit at the end of the month, I think it's an essential plan and general mindset that you need to adapt if you really want to take this to a high level if you just want to be a DJ and just make some scalps, etc., then you're naturally going to be more worried about every single trade. You're going to be more focused on just taking 100 trades in a week, right? But to get to this next level of trading, this higher league of trading, move away from it being a hobby and more of a profession. I think you need to journal, you need to do all these things and build an algorithm that you can stick to, a protocol. And of course, embracing uncertainty. You will never determine the end of the move, right? For example, if you have an entry, you'll never, generally speaking, wait for one home run exit point, right? This is why we have certain 3 or 4 take profits, because we don't know exactly when the move is going to end. We can make some rough calculations, but nobody can tell. And so if you've reached your predefined targets, just take profit. And this is an essential aspect. There's that expression, of course, no one will ever go broke taking profit. But at the same time, no one ever gets wealthy by taking profits too early. So I think it is a compromise as well, right? You don't want to just take everything off and then miss a complete parabolic move. So it's that fine balance, right? And of course, this is where the journaling comes in, right? Because random input equals random output. Trading should not define us as well. Of course, I think it's so important to have other passions. For example, going to the gym or just any sports or any activities that you find useful. Because at the end of the day, that we can die at any time. And for me personally, my passion is traveling, and I think trading is essentially a tool to really, in a sense, facilitate relationships and other things in my life. Inadvertently, those things I think will greatly make you a better trader as well. And of course, the 80-20 rule as well, the Pareto principle. 80% of our results really come from 20% of our efforts. And so I ask you to really think about this. What is the fastest way to really fast track this process? And I think, of course, I initially thought, okay, I'm going to do this on my own. But then I realized that it's actually a lot easier if you just build and find a community of like-minded traders, because you will, just by bouncing off ideas and sharing experiences, you will learn so much. And this does not, you do not have to be a lone wolf in this. Of course, another advantage is that when you've got a community of traders and you have a string of losses, you've got people to really bounce back on and who really actually not only hold you accountable, but really kind of provide feedback to you so you can really push forward. And this is why I always say journaling and statistics as well. Journaling is essential to really accelerate this process as well, because you're able to really isolate. So many people win a trade, right? And they're able to take profit, but the problem is that they don't know what they actually did well. They're not able to isolate why. What was it a case that they took profits in 4 batches or 3 batches? Was it the case that they avoided trading in the weekend? Was it the case that they traded at a particular favorable time of the day? Was it the case that they waited a couple of hours after news event to actually increase their win rate? So being able to really isolate why you won the trade and being able to build a set of criteria, for example, the entry, the exit, the stop loss position, of course, the time of the trade, the instrument traded, all these things have to be considered, right? But yeah, guys, that's all I have to talk about in trading psychology. And of course, do check out my YouTube channel, which I set up quite recently. I talk about things like my passion about trading and crypto and just other tips and tricks to really improve your trading process, really. Well, thanks a lot for watching, guys, and I'll catch you in a bit.